All right, we're going to start our meeting. We have everyone I anticipate being here. Is that correct? Mr. Bradley? Mr. Deasy won't be here by Zoom or any other means, or, okay. Then we are here. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask for the roll call from Mr. Bradley.
Mayor Doring.
Here.
Councilmember Barrick.
Here.
Councilmember Spoterato.
Here.
Councilmember Summers.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Deasy is absent.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yesterday, I attended LAFCO, and one of the members was not there yet and needed about 5 more minutes, so I was called upon to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and it was the slowest Pledge of Allegiance I've ever done to give the commissioner a few more minutes to get there. And she did. She arrived right on time. All right. Okay. We're on to item 4, adoption of the agenda. Ms. Bradley, do we have any changes to the agenda? I see we have a full house of nuns on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Let's see. I'll look for a motion to adopt. There's obviously a lot of listed on here that won't happen tonight other than the old business. I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of adopting the agenda as is, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right. We have adopted the agenda. No minutes, so we're on the public forum. I'll note that we've received some public comment under public forum, and then we've also received public comment under the item 12.1. And I'll open the matter for public forum if anyone wishes to approach your city council orally.
Go ahead, I have to find it on my phone. Oliver, you can go. I have to find it on my phone.
Seeing no public comment. Dun-dun-dun.
I always like going first. Yeah.
Mr. Caldwell, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I haven't been here a long time, and thank you for all your services, mayor, council, staff. So I'm not sure what I can accomplish here. There's a little bit of a fait accompli with the trees, obviously, and you know, that we can point to the responsibilities. But I think the overall arching aspect, how I am approaching this, is that.
Well, the tree, if you're going to make a comment on trees, that'll
Yeah.
come later under
Oh,
12.1.
okay, sorry.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah. Okay, fine. Anything other than what's on the agenda? I typically read this, but yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. We'll get right to it in short order. Mr. Mann.
Good afternoon. I'm reading from my phone because this was kind of last minute. Usually I have things written out. But I am urging you to consider the standards of leadership, accountability, and public communication that this council demonstrates and expects. I am one of the individuals referenced in a recent Nextdoor post by Council Member Aaron Barrick. It is attached to my comment for your next session, so you can see it for what it says. In that post, he publicly attributes patterns of behavior, motives, and conduct to specific community members he has chosen to block on that forum. Because I am among those blocked, I am prevented from seeing his statements in real time, responding to them, or correcting the record in the same public forum where those statements are being made. The same is true for the 3 other named community members he identifies, each of whom he is likewise unable to view, respond to, or correct his statements in that forum. This is not just about a disagreement. It is about an elected official using his position to create and control a one-sided public narrative about private residents. In this case, a council member is using a widely accessible community platform to characterize residents in negative terms while ensuring those same residents cannot participate in the conversation. That is not simply setting boundaries, it is exclusion combined with amplification, and it raises serious concerns about fairness, transparency, and accountability. When Council Member Barrick or any council member communicates in public, the authority of that role carries with it. Using a public platform to describe residents who have no ability to respond undermines trust and sets a troubling precedent for civic engagement. It also sends a clear message to the community. Participation comes with the risk of being publicly mischaracterized without recourse. That is a chilling effect on civil participation and public dialogue. If this council expects professionalism, fairness, and sound judgment from anyone serving as city manager, those same standards should be consistently reflected in the conduct of its own members. I am asking that the council acknowledge this issue and affirm clear expectations for fair, transparent, and accountable communication by its members. Silence on this issue will be understood by the community, including myself and the other individuals named in Council Member Barrick's post, as acceptance of this standard of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Others? All right, and I did receive that letter and another letter, similar letter. So just for the public at home, if there is public at home, the last comment you made about silence, that's kind of the process. So we'll take it up at another time, for sure, as I responded to you. Okay. So, Mr. Oliver, you know you're going to be allowed to make comment a little bit later. I apologize for that, but that's how it's going to work. And I'm going to move right through it. A lot of nuns here. Did want to mention that Michelle Covell issued a written comment. I may have mentioned that earlier, but I don't know if I mentioned her name. Michelle Covell, thank you for that. No reports by staff. None. We are moving all the way down. There aren't any other items under our agenda other than on to old business. Mr. Leach, I'll let you introduce the matter and we'll go from there.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. Council members, good evening. This matter is being brought back to you from the meeting on March 28th, 4th. Thank you for that cue. And we wanted to provide you an update both in response to some of the public comments that were made at the meeting as well as submitted in writing. Mr. Eric Jansen, Assistant Director of Public Works, is here to make the presentation and provide more details associated with the project.
Thank you.
So if I may have next slide, please. So just as a quick recap,
That monitor doesn't work, or it does work? Okay. I don't know, yeah, that's the one I look at, but also for the audience. Either way, that's about right. I wouldn't go that far. You want your public to see it too. Okay, that's about right. If it works. Cool. All right.
all right, again, as a quick
Mr. Jansen.
recap, the issue that we're seeking guidance from the council on is an interfering gas line with the sidewalk improvement project.
Pull that mic a little closer to you. Thank you.
So as you can see in the image on the slide here, we thought the gas line was out in the street. This was derived from past mapping. Next slide, please. In reality, the gas line runs right through the sidewalk and right through each of the existing tree wells. So each of the old trees were actually growing around it, and it is a fairly shallow berry. Next slide, please. So pipe is buried 1.5 to 2.5 feet below the surface, so effectively it penetrates each and every root ball from the old street trees. Next slide. So we presented this item to City Council on March 24th. City Council had requested more information regarding the design options, utility location process, and an explanation for why the utility conflict was not discovered prior to the start of construction. Next slide, please. So before we begin with that, the Public Works wishes to emphasize that the location of the utility is not the principal conflict. It is the shallow buried depth of the utility that prevents the project from moving forward in accordance to the plan. Had this utility been buried at a more conventional depth of 3 to 4 feet below grade, stump grinding would have continued with only minor revision to the plan. Next slide. So first major question, can the city reduce the scope of the project to allow PG&E time to relocate their utility? The answer is yes, but this is not advisable. And the reasons, a significant reduction in the scope is not going to entitle the city to a reduction in the contract price. So even if we reduce scope, we're still paying every bit as much money to our contractor. And also, the project must be complete in order to receive the full OBAG funding and to meet the city's funding match requirement. So the city's best path forward that preserves funding is to deliver the project in full and reducing the project scope now in the middle of construction would likely deliver less benefit at a greater cost. Next slide, please. Can the city get PG&E to pay for a new sidewalk like they did near Sunshine Market? So the answer is no. The project that PG&E performed near Sunshine was a project of their own, so they were fully and solely responsible for the cost of that project. They had torn up the sidewalk for their own purposes, to repair their own facilities, and sidewalk restoration was simply necessary. What city staff had done is simply direct them to restore the sidewalk in conformance with the sidewalk improvement plan that we already had in an area that is now considered part of the Phase 1B section. PG&E within the Phase 1A section that we're discussing between Pine and Adams is only obligated to adjust the elevations of their vaults and meter boxes. That is done with no cost to the city. But the city sidewalk improvements themselves are the sole financial responsibility of the city. Next slide, please. What flexibility does council have? So the options that preserve federal funding are very, very limited. So the OBAG 3 funding is available in the current federal fiscal year, and that ends on September 30th, 2026. Unspent OBAG funds become available to other Bay Area project sponsors at the end of the federal fiscal year. So even though we have these funds obligated, they are at risk of being de-obligated if this project drags out. And as a result, other jurisdictions who are able to deliver their projects would potentially be able to be awarded our funds because we are held up for other reasons. So again, the city's best path forward is to select an option that causes the least amount of delay and the smallest amount of additional expense. Next slide, please. Why the utility conflict was not discovered prior to the start of construction. Because utility mapping acquired by our consultant BKF showed the gas utility to be in the street. BKF incorporated this information into the original project plans. Next slide, please. When was the utility conflict discovered? So Gelati, our construction contractor, informed the city of the potential conflict on February the 12th, 2026. And how did the city respond? City staff directed Gelati to pothole the utility to confirm the location and depth. Next slide. What does PG&E say about this conflict? So Public Works met with PG&E representatives on April the 2nd. PG&E confirmed that planting street trees over a gas line is not the preferred practice, despite the fact that that is apparently what had happened before. However, PG&E has not expressed any opinion about Public Works' proposed plan to shift the tree wells, hydro-excavate, and plant 24-inch box trees over the gas line. I did reach out to PG&E again today, just to let them know that I was about to say this in a public forum. They did not respond. So the Public Works recommendation for resolution of this conflict remains the same as that which we proposed on March 24th. Next slide. So as a reminder, what we are suggesting is shifting the tree well locations away from the existing stumps. So the spacing will change slightly. Where the stumps are located, these areas would be expanded into planters, and the stumps would be cut flush with subgrade, so slightly below the surface of the sidewalk, and a little bit of potting soil applied to it and some form of low-growing vegetation. The plan that the city staff have generated places these different planters within about 4 feet of each of the new tree wells, so that the irrigation system already planned for the tree wells can simply be co-opted to provide irrigation to the planter, simply providing a small conduit or sleeve between the tree well and the planter, and drip irrigation can simply be pulled through it at our convenience. Next slide, please. So this part you've seen before. The benefits of doing this is it has a minimal delay to the project. The gas pipe remains undisturbed. It has low additional cost, reduces the total amount of new concrete that we have to install, adds greenery, and the sidewalk remains ADA compliant. We'll be able to maintain a 5-foot minimum width, which is the minimum amount for a person in a wheelchair, to do a 180-degree turn. Next slide. This slide you've seen before as well. These are the detriments to this plan. We will reduce the number of new street trees by 3. The surveyor will have to restake the tree well locations and add the planters. This is likely to incur an increased cost and change order from Gelati. Sidewalk is reduced to about 5 feet wide, but again, this still is fully compliant with ADA. The box size of the new trees must be reduced to 24 inches. Now, council had previously directed Public Works to specify 48-inch box trees. The original plan and the city arborist recommendation had actually been 24-inch. However, there had been previous public comment desiring to restore the look of downtown faster, which was why the 48-inch box trees were selected by council. We would simply be reverting back to that original plan that had been created by the landscape architect for the project, Gates and Associates, and had been recommended by our city arborist, Carlos Uribe. The street trees on the west side will still have a box size of 48 inches and look unbalanced. Council does have the option to go ahead and revert the entire project back to 24-inch box trees in order to restore balance. However, Public Works is keenly aware that previous public desire would be to restore the look of downtown as fast as possible. So we leave it to council discretion as to whether or not that is a benefit or a detriment. Next slide, please. Questions? I'm sure there will be many.
Why is PG&E resistant, or apparently resistant, to commenting on this and working through it with the city? Or would that be speculation on your part? I mean, you met with, who did you meet with, first of all?
So I met with Mark Van Gorder. He is our PG&E government liaison.
I know him well.
And Edgardo Ochoa. He is how can I describe this? He's kind of the overall utility guy, or underground utility guy. He is the person that we contact when we have utility relocations that have to be performed under the franchise agreement between the city and PG&E. He coordinates this, but he does not project manage, so he more or less sets policy. We also met with a land agent whose name is escaping me.
Would we require some kind of a release or indemnification or something, or permission, a written permission from PG&E to plant over the existing pipeline, as far as you know? Or
They have not requested anything of the sort.
Have there been discussions about moving potential trees away from the sidewalk, at least in areas where you can do that? Obviously, there's park, and then there are buildings. Has that been an option that's been discussed at all? Particularly Lyman Park, right there in the front.
In our meeting, we briefly discussed the possibility of moving the trees to the back of sidewalk, so basically within Lyman Park. PG&E did not express an opinion about this, and I did go ahead and express the opinion that it was the city's preference to put the trees at back of curb so that they match the other side of the street and the rest of downtown.
Would the 24-inch boxes be require a change in tree, or would it be the same species?
It would be the same species.
What is that?
It is Japanese Zelkova and Chinese pistache. Those are the species selected by council.
Okay. What happens if we decide not to put in any trees and we go forward with the sidewalk improvement? What is your opinion of that until we sort it out?
It's a little bit fraught.
Yeah.
Again, because of the OBAG funding. So we by accepting the OBAG funding and obligating that funding using the plan we have, we've essentially entered into a contract with Caltrans that requires that we deliver these trees. In addition, the replacement of the trees was one of the environmental mitigations we made for compliance with NEPA. So we would be not complying with our promises under NEPA, and I'm not quite sure how serious that would be to deliver, say, only half of the trees promised.
Do we have a general sense of the condition of the pipeline, the age of it, and whether it's on some kind of a scheduled replacement program, or do we have any kind of information on that? First of all, I'm surprised that they allowed it the first time. It was when those trees were planted, 35 years ago, maybe?
I'm not sure the exact date. They were not young trees. I mean, these trees were probably in the area of 40 to 50 years old. So that would potentially put them as early as the 1970s when they were planted, which would also be consistent with about the time that polygas line was coming into common use. So it's entirely possible both went in about the same time. It's unclear which came first, the tree or the gas line.
How much is the city's match, financial match, to qualify for the OBAG, roughly, in general terms, if you know?
I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head. It is somewhere in the area of $300,000 minimum, and I believe we have a commitment closer to $400,000.
The reason I asked that, I was wondering if we could buy some time by using those funds, maybe not getting the OBAG funds and pleading with OBAG. First of all, who have we talked to anyone at NBTA or anyone who's managing the OBAG grant for NBTA?
So MTC would be our
Okay.
first contact.
Yeah.
However, it is Caltrans Local Assistance who is ultimately responsible for making sure we deliver the project in accordance with our application and obligation documents.
And then back to my question on the, buying some time.
So the buying some time issue is really governed by the OBAG obligation itself. So the OBAG 3 program, which is what we are funded under, ends at the fiscal year, the federal fiscal year this year, so September 30th. At that point, the new OBAG program takes over, and once we pass the effective date of the OBAG program, it's in Caltrans's best interest to ensure that the funds are expended immediately. This is one of the reasons why we are at a risk of deobligation. So essentially, the money that's promised to us is no longer promised to us. And Caltrans then uses that money to start backfilling other outstanding projects that are prepared to move forward, but just need a little bit of more funding to get it over the finish line. So what would happen is we would start to see the $1.2 million we have obligated slowly reduced over time. And that's a hard date. So it is not recommended to let this project extend past September 30th. And I also want to remind council that, our summer season is coming up here. Ideally, we should have our sidewalks back in place so that those who are walking in downtown and visiting downtown businesses are able to do so in as much comfort as possible, so folks can make hay while they have the opportunity.
All right. Look to my colleagues for other questions or comments, and I'll open it to public comment after that.
I have a question.
Mr. Barrett.
Thanks for the presentation, Eric. It was great. Wondering about the planters. This idea of the planters seems
Planters or planners?
the planters.
Planters, okay, got it.
Above ground, right? Resting, I imagine. Is that correct? Where they're just sort of on the sidewalk?
So there actually was a brief discussion about that with PG&E. PG&E even offered that as a potential mitigation to put the new trees, the 24-inch box trees, into above-grade planters and not excavate at all. Now, this doesn't help us with the existing stumps. We would still probably need to cut those down to subsurface grade and provide some sort of low-growing vegetation to make that look good. But PG&E gave tacit approval to the idea that they would support the trees going in planters and no new trees going in the ground where they would effectively grow around that gas line.
And isn't that's the plan, right? That we're,
So above-ground
Same,
planters were not the plan.
okay, so
we-
these are
we were gonna
in-ground planters?
we were gonna
Help
put-
me understand what that looks like.
I certainly can.
I'm a
So
resident. Planters are above.
a 4x4 square hole would be left in the concrete. A tree grate, so an iron grate, decorative, with a frame, would be placed within that, and the tree planted in the ground there. So the trunk would rise right up out of the ground, just like every other tree on Main Street. Now, what PG&E, and my understanding of what you have suggested, is that an above-ground planter, say something that sits 2 to 3 feet above grade, or has the rim 2 to 3 feet above grade, plant the tree effectively in a pot, irrigate that, and not put it in the ground at all. PG&E has tacit approval of that idea. I mean, they did volunteer the idea during our conversation on April the 2nd as a mitigation. And it would technically meet the requirements and our obligations under the OBAG program. The trees would be there, they just wouldn't be in the ground. We'd still have irrigation.
So the original plan, it's good to know there's options there, whether that's an attractive option remains to be seen. But if we put it into the ground in these kind of underground planters with the grates, doesn't that prohibit the growth of these trees? And it seemed like it would stunt the overall growth, and so there'd be a mismatch at some point anyways.
So what
correct?
what is placed in the ground, don't think of it as being like a pot buried in the ground. What we put in is a root barrier. So this is essentially a plastic curtain that goes around the perimeter of the tree ball or the root ball and simply prevents the roots from expanding outward. They are still free to go down. And then once they get below the root barrier, then they can expand. The root barrier is used primarily for the purpose of preventing shallow roots from impacting the sidewalk and lifting it. The species of the tree, both of these species are also not very aggressive to damaging sidewalks, so their roots usually do not cause a big problem. But we do apply a root barrier.
Are we not concerned with the gas line?
Well, the
Be
roots,
a concern of mine, just, going down into the gas line.
the roots will grow around the gas line just like the original street trees would. So it's a nightmare for future repair. I mean, and the situation that we would be creating by planting these trees is no worse than the one we had. And no matter what, when PG&E goes to deal with this gas line, they will have to move it. There is no question about that. And that was the case long before this project was even considered.
So that brings up a question around, do we do Do we put any trees in there and wait for the ultimate, because we have not determined what.
I
the-
want to get into a lot of discussion without
Okay.
opening for public comment, but, yeah,
open.
but, no, I mean, make your point. I just want
Okay.
to be cognizant of it, and then we
Sure.
have a 6 o'clock
I
meeting
guess
with
my,
somebody
my
else.
point to discuss would be, do we put anything at all and wait for the final determination of the Main Street property? Yes, we'd have to go in, but we could prepare the site to do just this at a later date if that's where we decide to go, but it seems perhaps premature.
It jeopardizes our OBAG funding because of the
No tree?
obligation. I'm sorry?
So if we don't put trees in, there's no OBAG.
It jeopardizes it. So I don't know that we wouldn't be able to get maybe some of the funding. The funding is delivered to us as a reimbursement. So work we don't do, we cannot be reimbursed for. But more importantly, because planting the trees was one of the mitigations for NEPA compliance, we are making ourselves less compliant with NEPA. And that is a big problem for federal funding. That is one of the things that you can do that kills the funding in its entirety. That would happen over the course of an audit. So we may not see the ramifications of that particular decision for several years, but we may very well expose ourselves to what is called a clawback, which is where Caltrans comes to us 3 years after we have finished this project and says, nope, you didn't comply with the rules, we want all the money back.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that is a big pitfall, especially of these federal funding vehicles.
Any other brief clarifying questions before I open public comment? Mr. Summers?
Yeah, thanks. What's our total cost of this project that we'd seek back from OBAG, do we know?
So we have an award of $1.2 million.
Right, but what's it take for this sidewalk, or what's Gelati billing us for, you know?
Right now, we're at about, I believe, $1.8 million for the total project.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
So we make up the balance as our match funding, and we do have a minimum match funding requirement. I believe that's about $300,000. We're over that right now. So there's a little bit of wiggle room on how much money we actually spend. But
And then when we lose or get de-obligated, and then do they reassess like a new fiscal year of, and then do you reapply, or where do you sit then?
there would be no reapplication for this
Okay.
program. This
Okay,
program
this is it, and it ends
ends-
and dies, and then makes a new program of something else.
Exactly, and the new program will have different rules. You'll actually see a recommendation about OBAG 4 from me.
Yeah, well, I just risk doing anything that's unsightly or unappreciated by the town in our current state of being. And I hear bad things about Chinese pistache. I'm not a professional, but we all want to. I think it's best to take time and do. I mean, I don't want to miss this money, but I really just want to stop making bad decisions, whatever that may be. And what a tricky spot. I mean, can we just fake the trees there, do some plastic, get the OPEC money, and then, do some sidewalk? I mean, what, they didn't stipulate, real or not. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I think about that spot, being like,
It's,
wow, I'd love benches or something. Anyways, I think it's, time to talk on. Thanks, Mayor.
No, I just want to allow, so the planning commission starts at 6. We have a meeting at 5:30, so I'm cognizant of that, but I'm also cognizant of that we need to open public comment, and then we'll bring it back. I am opening public comment.
Thank you. Kelly Wheaton, Inglewood Avenue. I submitted a written comment, and I talked about Groundhog Day, and now I really am feeling like Groundhog Day. I was sitting in the back of the room. I was sitting next to Leslie Milton. I showed her this picture about the Japanese Zelkova. It is a totally inappropriate tree. I know it very, very well. There were 4 of them alongside my parents' house, and they lifted the sidewalk so that it was a very popular skateboarding jump. I have a picture that I'm happy to share with you, but it was eliminated a long time ago from the trees. The other one, the pistache, is better. It has some issues as well, but I will just scream as loud as I possibly can against this tree, and I'll just show you what I'm talking about.
No.
No?
You
Or
can-
can I send it to
Well,
Andrew and you can
Yeah,
see
that's
it?
fine. Absolutely send it to us.
Because it's like this around, it lifts up the ground, the spread on it's about 50 feet.
We don't know if it had a root barrier or not, though, when it was planted in your situation, correct? I
But,
mean,
but the thing with trees is whether you put a root barrier, what you keep doing is taking a tree that has a certain way of being and saying, we're going to make you conform to our situation. And you can only push that so far. And this is just crazy. And then on top of it, I mean, putting on gas lines when you know that the gas lines at some point or other are going to have to be dug up, which means all the trees are going to be cut down again. It's like madness. Thank you.
we understand the issues are conflicting in many ways.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tamara Sorensen, St. James Drive. And just to sort of reiterate what's been said already about the tree situation, the answer still was not that the mayor did pose a question, sir, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Well, address it to me, and then I'll address it to him.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Or
you,
to us.
Mayor.
Thank you.
You had asked a question of this gentleman regarding, has PG&E specifically been contacted with regard to the age of these pipes? And if they had any plans in the near future to revisit the pipes, repair the pipes, replace the pipes, and if there were a timeline attached to that.
All right.
That was not answered unless I did not catch the
No,
answer.
other comments? Oh, we'll get back to it.
Okay.
Do you have other comments?
I do.
Yep.
So with regard to the ABAG funding, so it appears that, again, the city has found itself into a reactive governance rather than a proactive governance, and that seems to be the state of affairs. So with this funding conundrum, again, I think the first step would be to contact PG&E and not just leave a phone call and say they didn't get back to me in 24 hours. Continue to call, continue to get a live being on the phone and just explain the conundrum that this city is in, that we really do need some resources with PG&E. We need some assistance, and possibly we would love to partner with them, possibly in the future with this, if it were something that were on their slate in the next 3 or 4 years. If that were the case, then maybe we do put some trees in the planters that can be moved at a later date. I don't know. The second question is, would those planters suffice for this funding from, is it ABAG, OBAG, or NEPA, you said the funding is from?
OBAG.
OBAG. And also, has NEPA been contacted to say, gosh, you know, we've got this grant, we are thrilled to have this grant. However, we ran into some gas lines where these trees were supposed to go, and now we're in this conundrum. We find ourselves in a difficult place. Has anyone reached out to NEPA, if that's the correct, is that the correct organization or entity to reach out to say that we've run into this hiccup? And could we maybe, again, partner, work together? We want to facilitate and honor our word. But words don't just go to be honored for these organizations that are giving us funding. Honoring has to go to the process and the residents, what we all are looking for leadership to provide. So that's a two-way street, and I find it really interesting that the council would be more interested in honoring these organizations rather than the process of our own due diligence and addressing these situations in such a hasty manner rather than providing the due diligence that could have been done, again, with a phone call in the beginning of this to say, let's confirm with PG&E these lines are where they say they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Lou Cavell. I just wanted to say a couple of things. So I did send in a public comment. It would be great to see what the 24-inch boxes look like versus the 48-inch box sizes look like. And, you know, it seems like actually, I don't know, something that maybe we could do like Photoshop. I'd be happy to do it if somebody gave me the picture of the trees. Just so that I'm pretty good at Photoshop. I just would like to see the scale of the trees. Secondly, I think buying time. I don't know how many times I've had to spend less money on some plants and wish I had spent more money on the plants and just got older plants, so I didn't have to wait so long. So I would really, I mean, for Main Street downtown, the west side where the post office is, if we can do the larger size trees, as Claudia said, I would listen to her. She's a really great landscape designer. And, you know, and she said that, you know, they kind of grow in pretty quickly. So, she wouldn't worry so much about the odd size. To that point, I wouldn't go lower just because the other side had to get lower. You know, I would try to go with 48 on that, on the post office side. It's interesting that the report presentation said PG made no comment about planting the new trees in the new wells, but that it was clarified later that they were completely suggesting on the April 7th phone call that the above ground planter was a great mitigation approach to this, so that the gas lines wouldn't be impacted by the trees. So it sounds like they're actually okay with putting a planter in above ground. They just didn't want to say anything about putting it in the ground. City Council will address you on this. The word jeopardizes was brought up. It says, I think, Mr. Barrick, you asked the question whether or not planting the trees or not planting the trees or something would jeopardize the OBAG funding as expressed by staff. And I guess jeopardizing isn't really clear to me what technically is or is not going to happen. And less compliant with the plan if it is a gas line issue. It seems like they would maybe understand that it's out of safety or potential future adjusting. And if they said that they could, if the funding it can still continue with just putting a 48-inch box planter above ground temporarily to get the money from OBAG and get those 48-inch trees, while we then figure out the gas line later, perhaps we just put those above. I don't think it's not the best solution, but it seems like we still get our OBAG funding and we get the 48-inch trees, and they're not planted where then we have to remove them. I'm talking about having them planted above ground so their roots don't interfere with the gas lines. And I guess I'm seeing a common situation that I just want to making decisions out of fear rather than on all of the facts and knowledge. Jeopardizing to me is a little bit, the word jeopardizing doesn't really explain exactly what would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. It's you.
Oliver Caldwell Crane. I just love problems. So this is new for me, this rendering of the surface plantings in the old tree wells, and then they'll have new tree wells. So I wasn't prepared for that because, people park along there. So now when you get out of your car, there's a high probability you're going to be going into a tree, or you're going to be maybe going into this low-level landscaping because there's less sidewalk now. So that's a little bit of a concern. But I don't know the game with PG&E. I don't know how it works with pipes. But can't pipes be rerouted more inside the sidewalk and then connected at the ends? So when the PG&E pipe approaches the tree line, it makes a soft angle and then goes down inside of the full length of the sidewalk and then comes back out on the other end so we can preserve the tree line. Is that possible?
Well, you direct questions to us, and then he's keeping track of
Oh,
some of
okay,
these.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you talk to us, and then we will talk to him.
Okay, so the question is, why can't, gas lines are flexible. Why can't we just have a flexible detour just a couple feet from the grinding zone to reroute that PG&E pipe? I mean, we could lay it in there and tell PG&E, connect it later when we're done. So I'm looking for solutions here. I mean, and above ground plants, trees in boxes, it's just not going to work. That's impossible. That's a short-term solution. It's going to look terrible. It looks going to be hokey. Those trees are going to outgrow that box. You're going to have to take the box away and you start all over. So it seems like what I'm concerned about the pipe is I just spent a lot of money dealing with an underground pipe. Because what happened is the organic material in the ground deteriorated over time. The ground sunk and cracked the pipe. And I had to redo all this hardscape to deal with a cracked pipe because the organic material decomposed. And I was just stunned with what happened. And I was thinking, what if that happens here? Where suddenly this pipe is giving way. It's an old pipe. We don't know how old it is. And so now what we're facing is a short-term solution and a long-term solution. And we're hedging the money against it. Another metaphor is I just went through an awful remodel in San Francisco, a condo for my kids. The door was in the wrong location. I just wanted to move it. $4,000 job. Once we opened the sheetrock, it turned into a $30,000 job because I had to reroute all this electrical. And so I had to face the same decision. Overspend, get it right for the long term, or do the short term and get it wrong. And that's where we're facing. So that's my 2 cents. But I'd love to see if we can reroute that pipe. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, you heard some of those questions with respect to outreach to PG&E, and takes two to tango, I guess, and they're not tangoing.
Well, they did.
Gas lines are extremely complicated. It's not like a water line. Gas lines are extremely complicated. I'm involved in litigation with NBTA and PG&E and gas lines and the Vine Trail, and it just it's kind of mind-numbing. But so I'm a little bit aware of the complicating factors. But in a perfect world, we could deal with PG&E, right? But their processes are so slow.
So that's
we don't have
the
the luxury of
principal.
time.
That's the principal problem. Again, the time frame with which to deliver this project and retain the funding is relatively short. We have been planning this project for almost a decade. So we are at the finish line. It's just a matter of getting over that finish line. Now, as for communication with PG&E, the meeting that I referenced on April the 2nd, that was a Zoom meeting with 3 PG&E representatives and representatives of the city, including myself. So we are talking directly.
Okay.
However, PG&E has been reluctant to express a real opinion about this matter. So they aren't stopping us from putting trees in the ground. They are not endorsing us putting trees in the ground. The fact that we wish to put the trees in the same alignment as the original trees means that any problem PG&E had before this project remains exactly the same as any problem they have after this project. Relocating that gas pipe right now, that would take several months and force us to pause the project for several months. And that's in the best case scenario. And again, that jeopardizes the funding. And I use jeopardize because I cannot say for a fact that we will be denied the funding. It will become more of a discretionary thing on the part of Caltrans as to whether or not they claw back the funding at a later date.
Yeah, I get that. I wanted to ask a question about BKF, but our attorney's not here, so I'm not going to ask that question. I probably wouldn't ask that question out loud anyway, but yes, we are in a difficult spot. Mr. Leach, anything else to add to this before we deliberate and make a
Mayor, do you
decision
want to
on
close
this?
public comment?
No? Go ahead.
Clarify a couple things.
When I close it, someone will jump up immediately afterwards. No.
Clarify
Go
a
ahead.
couple things. NEPA stands for National Environmental
Protection.
Act. It's the equivalent of California's CEQA. So it's a environmental process, not an entity, just to clarify that. Yeah, it's a kind of a challenging dynamic. I think the pots above ground is a creative solution, but to Mr. Caldwell's point, how long is a temporary or short-term solution in the government world? It could tend to be one of those things that is there for 10 years. So
It's a terrible solution, but it's probably the best solution in my view. Temporarily it buys us some time, but I agree with everybody. All the points are well taken.
Yes.
We're in a bad spot.
absolutely. I would also submit that, this is kind of the nature of construction in an old part of a town. Every downtown that has construction in it deals with these similar types of problems. Existing infrastructure, once it gets mapped, you adjust, and then you have to pothole and figure out where the depths are and then adjust again.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to comment before I close public comment? One last public comment.
Celeste Neely,
You want-
Magnolia Oaks. It was in my public comment the first time.
Can you put the mic in front of your face so we can hear you? Thank you. Or a little bit, yeah, that's better.
It was in my comment letter the first time. This side of the road is very hot and sunny. I don't think even the buildings on the other side are very tall, so you don't have a lot of shadow cast. I think it would be nice to see the trees on the Lyman Park side leave the sidewalk to be smoothed and renewed. You don't mess with the gas line. And I think as an option of creativity, it would also be nice to see maybe another structure. What comes to mind sometimes is like I hate to say a covered bridge or a pergola or something that would continue to provide like some more shade at that kind of like that intense section where the sun's shining. It could also be, we want to bring tourists to the town. You could look at these things, something nice and creative, and it could be a spot. It could be a photo spot. It could be a kissing spot. It could be a marry me spot. Lyman Park, it could be a gateway to Lyman Park. This area is kind of a wide open, space that could really be utilized way more creatively than just, hey, let's just put the trees back in and over the gas line. It just seems like a terrible idea, like everyone's expressed. And PG&E is very slow moving, and I think PG&E can do it, and I think we can do it, but it definitely is going to require time and the funding. We don't want to lose, but I think if we get the trees in, we're not going to lose the funding. So I think we have good options that do not go back on the gas line. And I think we have options for something creative and something for tourists and something to highlight Lyman Park.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the council. My inclination is to move forward with the construction of a sidewalk that's safe for pedestrians. That's the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve. Hold off on trees, potentially put some boxes there temporarily. I actually do like the idea of rethinking what we're doing there. Maybe the best place, if there's a place to have an alternative to trees or something along with trees on Lyman Park, that might be something to think about. We're not going to make that decision tonight, but it's something, that the landscape architects and others can vision something for us, go, wow, that could be something there. I have no idea what that would be. Those are my thoughts. I don't feel comfortable replanning over the pipeline, but I do feel very comfortable moving forward with a sidewalk and making it nice and safe. That's the ultimate goal, a safe sidewalk. What are your thoughts, others?
Can I speak, Mr. Mayor? Paul, can I speak?
Oh, of course. I thought you were going to start. Yeah, I was waiting.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry.
So I also agree that I don't want to plant any trees over top of gas lines. I like the idea of, like you, Mr. Mayor, focusing on getting the sidewalks safe, whether it's planting trees in Lyman Park, if that would suffice to not have to worry about them yanking funds. But it sounded like you were indicating, Eric, that that's not what they were offering.
We have made commitments in the form of the plan as it exists now. By making major changes like this, especially changes that affect how we told Caltrans we would meet the requirements of NEPA, we expose ourselves to the potential for a clawback. And again, this clawback can occur anytime up to 3 years after council accepts the improvements that we're building right now. I won't say that we won't get to keep the money. I'm
Right.
just saying we are exposing ourselves to the possibility of losing the money, and it is $1.2 million we are talking about.
But if I'm hearing council members musing, for lack of a better term, are you suggesting that we consider planting them at the back of walk along Lyman Park?
Correct.
Okay,
As opposed to in the sidewalk.
on top of the gas line.
Yes,
Yeah.
instead of on top of the gas line.
I would just point out, we already have several large trees at the back of Walk in Lyman Park. So there wouldn't be much to plant, at least not until after the old city hall is maybe torn down. But my understanding is it is still council's intent to sell that property to a developer.
Yet to be determined.
Like I said, I do not know. I have not been privy to that.
So my thoughts broadly align with my colleagues. I think planning over the gas lines is a mistake to be avoided, to the mayor's point. No question for me there. I am sensitive to the funding issues you bring up. It's a enterprise risk discussion, really, right? Is it real risk or perceived risk or somewhere in between? I'm not an expert. We probably don't have time to delve into that too much. You had mentioned that the planters above ground wouldn't, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear, but I thought I heard that the planters above ground would suffice for the OBAG funding.
It would technically comply with our plan. We would be replacing the trees that we have removed.
That might be the way to go for me. There are also planters above ground, temporary in nature by definition. I'd like to see the planters, nice planters, not wood boxes, like we're burying somebody, but something along those lines. I think that would be the most prudent piece here, and I think, Mr. Johns, to your point about what we're going to be doing with Lyman Park, we don't know yet. That's been put on pause, and I think that will get figured out in the future, and this wouldn't preclude a redesign of Lyman Park or an expansion of Lyman Park using the City Hall property. That's all in front of us. So that seems like a prudent way to move forward for me. I'm interested in my colleagues' thoughts. That gets sort of checks the most boxes in a difficult situation.
What do you think, Mr. Summers?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're leaning into is the idea of sidewalk covering everything, and then we set a planter with a tree on top sort of safely, and then we mitigate the potential jeopardy of losing the OBEG money that we've already taken that they might come back with after 3 years. I mean, and if that's like a real and an okay solution with the community, then I mean that, you know, it's
The one caveat there and the one amendment to that is we have these tree stumps that we will take down a little bit lower, likely put the boxes on top of those, right?
Keep in mind, those tree stumps will rot in place, so it's not advisable to put concrete over the top of them.
No, I don't think
That
so.
flag will fail, and fail quickly. Same goes for trying to put a large potted tree on top of that stump, because again, the stump will rot away and the tree will tip, sink, who knows what. We can
It's
try
not going to
any
be
of this.
as aesthetically pleasing that most of us would desire.
That is correct.
But it's a
It will-
temporary, what, I don't even know, temporary in St. Helena, it could be for a while, unfortunately, until we get the gas pipeline issue resolved. So, Ms. Summers, go ahead. I just wanted to explain that one little point.
Yeah, or perhaps, there's a bench that's inset from the curb, so, people can open their door, and then there's something to enjoy at least. It's pretty hard, but I was real curious about the stumps and how to get rid of those. I mean, it's just small cuts and.
Well, that's referred to as handwork. And that was actually Gelati's suggestion, was that we pay a very substantial sum of money, I do not have an exact amount, to have each of those root balls carefully removed by hand. So essentially a single technician with a Sawzall and many, many hours to carefully remove those root balls. It still doesn't move this gas pipeline. And it doesn't save this gas pipeline either. No matter what, this gas pipeline is too shallow and is running through too many existing root balls.
Do we, by the way, it comes to mind, do we know where the gas pipeline is south of Adam Street?
We do not. We have
We
not
do not.
examined that.
We're going to be facing another issue unless we get that one locked in.
we-
We're not going to open a public comment. We already have a closed session that's starting that should have started. I'm
Mr. Mayor,
for that.
sorry to correct. We actually do, because I believe part of the paver rehab project, we did USA for those, and so we do know where the
we do.
gas line is
Okay,
south
good.
of Adams.
All right. That's good to know.
Yep.
Mayor, in regards to them giving us the information through BBK or not
BKF.
Is there any liability in that, in their guidance and going, yep, sign off on this, and then, this situation, I know there's no recourse or.
There's not, because,
I think we should defer to council on that one.
Yeah.
legal counsel.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I would prefer that. Yeah.
the other
We
question
don't have a
I,
council here tonight. so.
correct.
No, absolutely.
I think one of the things we'll want to look at is the spacing of the planters, assuming that's the direction council's giving unanimously or
Yes.
majority, where the planters are spaced to not affect how they land on the parking T-bars. So where parking is, so people aren't opening their doors into planters.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of coordination on our part to figure that out.
All right. Do we have consensus, or is there a little bit of a wrinkle by anybody or change? We just have to beg for mercy that those. By the way, can you, so if you do get the box trees 48 inches probably, are you able to replant those somewhere else? If, we have other areas in our city that could use the trees. Say it's a year from now, or 6 months from now, 8 months from now, could we relocate those boxed plants somewhere else in our city so that they?
So the trees have not yet been purchased by Gelati.
Okay.
So we would still have the flexibility to either downsize the tree that we're planting
All right.
or to cancel that particular
Okay.
part of the application.
All right.
Again, the trick with the canceling is it again jeopardizes this OBAG funding.
Okay. Well, we have to be in discussions with all of the players, and we have a gas pipeline issue. I do agree that that's a good narrative to tell. It's like, hey, we're confronted with an issue. And the pipeline is a lot closer to the surface than anyone could have imagined, probably even PG&E. I bet it surprised them. I mean, it's not that far under the ground. It's just amazing.
It did surprise them.
Yeah, okay. What do you need from us, Mr. Leach? Do you have the direction?
I believe the direction is to go with planters. I believe the direction is to go with the largest tree we can, whether it's a 48-inch box or 36. We'll work through that process.
Preferably not the Japanese, but we go with the Chinese at this time? Respectfully.
No, I appreciate that. I think the species has been spec'd and bid. That was part of the bid process.
Yeah.
And I believe we changed the species based upon the commentary from
Okay.
Phase 1B. Pistache. I don't
Yeah.
know if there was anything else.
That'd be
other than-
favorable if there's still an option. They haven't ordered the trees, just to make a quick note.
Council's direction at the November 2024 meeting was that the Chinese pistache and the Japanese Silkova were the consensus 2 trees. Both of these trees were also recommended by our landscape architect and also by our city arborist.
All right. Well, we'll lean to the Chinese. We have a choice there,
Okay.
the pistache. We don't just call out at our public meetings. Public comment is closed. I know people are excited. Continue to write in comments. That's the only way I can say that. We have another meeting that's critically important for our city at this point. Do you have enough direction there before we go on to our closed
Yes, we
session?
do, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Where are
Thank
we
you.
going to be meeting for our closed session?
Downstairs.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order before I adjourn this meeting to our closed session? All right. Adjourned. Downstairs.